All right, welcome to the monitoring functional update. My name is Ben. I'm the tech lead and now former manager. We recently hired a new manager, Sept, on the and also Peter is a new senior backend engineer on the team. What do? We develop all the monitoring features, which includes metrics, logging, and tracing. We've been adding new features with and planning for all the operations homepage and tracing coming up in the next couple of releases. We've had quite a long shortage of backend engineering on our team. If you have candidates who are interested in monitoring, we're looking for Ruby on Rails developers. Please put them in, send us referrals. We'd love them. In order to improve our throughput with the resources we have, we've been trying to reduce our feature size to smaller incremental changes. In 11.0, we were working on getting the pod logs. So now, if you're running in CI/CD with Kubernetes, you can now see the logs from your pods. We've also moved to the operations sidebar. So we've started to add the monitoring features as part of the operations sidebar. We've also shipped the first iteration of the Omnibus Alerting. So basically what this means is, as an Omnibus administrator, you can get alerting that will tell you that your Omnibus install is unhealthy. So far, we started with some basic stuff like disk space, and we'll be moving on to more features that will let you know if some of your the individual Omnibus components, like the Rails app or Gitaly or the database, are having performance problems or other operational problems. We're also going to be working on a performance dashboard that will be included inside the Omnibus admin panel, so that Omnibus admins can see the health state or the performance state of their Omnibus at a quick glance. In 11.2, we shipped SLI alerting. So basically, if you have business metrics that you want to alert on inside your application in CI/CD and Kubernetes, you can now configure that inside GitLab and get alerts directly into your project. We're also going to be adding some SLI alerts for some of the default metrics. So if you're using the Nginx ingress, which is what we ship by default, we'll be able to tell you if there are errors. In production, we've been working on deploying Thanos. This is almost done, not quite. We're just finishing up the testing, and then we'll have a global. So Thanos is a clustered Prometheus service. It acts as a proxy layer so that it sits on top of Prometheus, and this will let us have a global view of all metrics within GitLab, so that we can compare more easily compare staging versus production. And that's it for the slides. Let's go to questions. Do I need to be on YouTube to see the questions?
Hi Ben, this is Sid. This is a convoluted process, so I hope other people also ask questions. You're gonna press the raise hand button, and then you get promoted to a panelist. It's a bit cumbersome, but anyway,
Yeah.
this Thanos. I think I also saw something from Uber that was about scalable Prometheus. Is that another project, or is that Thanos?
That's a different project. So that's called M3DB, and it's a separate database, and it's it is its own whole monitoring system and time series database. And the Uber has a plugin so that Prometheus servers can ship their data to M3DB, but then you have to use M3DB to access the data. Whereas Thanos is a scalable proxy layer as a sidecar to the Prometheus server. So basically, what happens is you have your Prometheus server, you have your sidecar, and the sidecars cluster themselves. And then on the dashboard server, we add a query server, and it connects to the sidecars and allows you to query all the data and compare across instances. It also has a whole bunch more advanced features that we'll be adding slowly over time, or we'll be enabling over time. It can take the Prometheus data and ship it to a bucket storage, so that instead of having to depend on a complicated database, we can just use an existing storage service like S3 or Google Cloud Storage, and then it can pull long-term data out of the cloud storage and do queries against it, so that you can basically externalize the reliability, the highly durable storage solutions, because it's one of those things where those kinds of clustering storage systems are extremely difficult to build and operate. And so why not leverage one that's existing? Whereas Uber went and they had to go completely write their own thing with their own clustering, and that's definitely not easy to do and get right.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'll look into that. If someone else raised their hand, please go to their questions first. I have enough questions to fill 20 minutes. So unless you interrupt me, I'll just keep asking them. I think we spend a lot of time on like making our own kind of APM client for our Ruby and Rails processes that was compatible with Prometheus. Can we kind of deprecate that and use whatever Datadog made instead?
So yeah, well, so actually what we're planning right now is we're planning on taking our APM or the Prometheus client library code that we wrote, and we're actually going to upstream all that to the official Prometheus library.
Oh, that's neat.
It's just been because of the lack of backend developers on our team, we haven't had anybody to actually do that work. But we definitely want to upstream all that code and make that part of the official official library. And actually, I had another company come to me at PromCon and say they were also interested in helping working on that. So I have they were going to follow up with me when they were ready to start working on improving the official Prometheus client library code.
Cool. And we're between, like, we got APM, we got the metrics in Prometheus, and we got tracing. Do you think that covers the whole APM space, or are we then missing something?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think from an APM, from the code side, having tracing and metrics is most of it. I'm of the opinion that log shipping is more of something you do at your orchestration layer and not something you do as part of your APM code.
Oh, I totally agree that logs are something else.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
what's
that should cover us. There's also some other developments in the open source world around APM libraries. For example, Open Census is a project that was started at Google to create a standardized APM library. It already supports Open Metrics and Prometheus, but Open Census, there's nobody working on it for Rails, or they have minimal Ruby support. And I've started talking to but on this subject of open source APM clients, I know Sept, our new engineering manager, is interested in this as well. Cool.
For log aggregation, are we going to use Elasticsearch for that?
That's a good question. We haven't fully scoped that yet. We're considering Elastic. as the primary log indexer.
Yeah, I'm not. It's kind of hard to run it at scale, but I didn't find anything else. So
yeah, no, I've heard some rumors of some other developments from Grafana Labs, but there's a couple of other smaller projects that haven't really gained any traction. So it's still mostly Elastic is kind of like the one that we need to go.
What are the smaller projects you're looking at?
There's a small project called OKLog, and it's kind of just a really dumb log shipper and provides mostly just a distributed grep interface. So it's not fancy. It doesn't have a lot of indexing. It's not really designed to be super powerful. But what it does is, instead of having to have this whole crazy Elastic Kibana thing, it just depends on that. You already get an idea of what you're looking for because you have Prometheus metrics. So instead of having no Prometheus metrics and no monitoring, and so you have to use the Elasticsearch interface to like find anything. OKLog just kind of assumes that you've already narrowed it down to what you're looking for based on your metrics monitoring.
Okay, so you got kind of the OK logs, which is kind of no schema. You got the Elastic, which is kind of a schema on read, because it's already indexed. Then you have Splunk, which is we're kind of indexing a bit on the fly because we haven't fully indexed it up front, but we got a lot of custom C code to make that quick. And you got like schema on write, where you use something like timescale DB, but that's not really appropriate for logs because then you need to define a schema, which is hard with logs.
No, and I believe the one that I heard that I was talking to, talking to a couple people that were just mostly doing schema on read. So it just basically ingest it, and that's kind of like the BigQuery way of doing it. So BigQuery is kind of this semi-schemaless SQL interface, and since you know the time range, you can just generate the schema on read.
Yeah, it's hard to decide between them. I'm excited to see open tracing or tracing planned for 11.5. I think we're using Jaeger for that.
Yep.
What's the thought? Like, how much of Jaeger is going to be in GitLab? Are we going to put an iframe around Jaeger and just say, hey, this is it? Or are we going to implement our own graphs and Jaeger on the back end like we do with Prometheus?
That's a good question. Right now, we're still trying to figure out what's possible with the Jaeger code. So far, we're just going to be proxying the entire Jaeger interface, so it'll kind of just be like a redirect, and we'll proxy straight through to it.
Yep, makes sense as a first step.
William, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'll just pop in. I'm kind of curious if there's let's say we have a larger customer and they've already implemented like a Datadog or New Relic and they're using that, to full effect. And then they also adopt GitLab. What's an example of what type of functionality they would use GitLab monitoring for that they would either not get out of those other types of tools, or that GitLab would do better in some way, so it would benefit them to use the GitLab monitoring rather than those other tools?
Sure.
With today's functionality as GitLab is in 11.2, not kind of the roadmap. I'm kind of curious about today's functionality.
Yeah. So with today's functionality, we already ship canary metrics. So when they're using the canary functionality of GitLab, we allow the interface to automatically show them differences between their canary environment and their production environment. So if they see if they see if they can immediately see performance drift in the Canary environment, and I believe that's sort of possible in things like New Relic, but we show it right in the GitLab user interface.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you. And just want to say how awesome it is to hear about upstreaming functionality. Really excited to see our engineering team grow and to bring that to fruition.
Seth.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna chime in also. Hi, I'm Seth. I'm the new engineering manager for the Monitor team, and I'm still getting caught up on a lot of things. So I don't have like a like fully fleshed out answer to this question, but I would say one thing that I've seen so far that I think what we have even now is that it works. You know, it from the get-go, from the ground up, works really well with Kubernetes, and that's something that, at the very least, New Relic does not do well right now. So I think that is an advantage that we have.
Very cool. Yeah, I think all our operations should just assume Kubernetes. Like, it's okay if it works without it, but like we're gonna, by the time we have our operation stuff really great, Kubernetes will be the default. So I think we can we got a bet on that, and it's great to hear that we're going fully that we're compatible with cloud native and that it's not a bolt-on.
Question from the chat was talking about the pricing side of New Relic. Of course, that's always a sticking point with monitoring. Is I don't like it when monitoring scales with the amount of stuff you're serving, and that's part of the reason why we created Prometheus in the first place. Was we wanted monitoring to be a constant cost and not a exponential cost as a service grows in usage. So by using the Prometheus monitoring and tracing and things within GitLab, it scales with your developer org and not your not the actual service that your developer org is capable of running.
I agree. Hey, you and I think it's the consumption pricing is tricky there, and same for Splunk with their charging per gigabyte. I think it leaves an opportunity for other players. Talking about that, about Splunk, it's mostly used for security, information and event management. For that, it's not super helpful. You said like, hey, we don't have to index as much because we got the metrics in Prometheus, but the metrics in Prometheus won't help you very much with security. How do you think about that as we'll probably add a lot of security features over time to the logging?
That's a good question. I guess I've done a little bit where we've provided some monitoring functionality and used some of the Prometheus monitoring as a source for security engineers to look for things, but not really doing a ton yet. I guess because a lot of the security work is very high cardinality analysis. Having the ability to run the kind of Splunk style reports is probably something we'll have to consider in terms of like log management handling. So I think there's definitely going to be some collaboration between security features and monitoring features.
Yeah.
Log.
And I think that might prompt us to use Elastic for the log aggregation instead of a lighter weight alternative. Although my heart goes out to the lighter weight alternatives, but we're seeing that our security features are super in demand. So we should make sure that we build a foundation that's conducive. Yeah. I looked around. I didn't see a lot of security features on top of Elastic yet. So I think it might be an underserved market. Do we know, like, there's some really cool next generation logging things like stack driver logs and scalar, which are really impressive performance. But all of them seem to be based on proprietary tech. Do we know, like, what's up there?
This has been a huge question in the Prometheus community, is like, what is out there for next gen logs? And I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, like everybody's just basing it on Elastic. And there's other front ends. So there's a product called Graylog, and they're another interesting front end. But again, storage is on Elastic, or optionally, I think they were working on Cassandra, and all of these things are a pain to do at scale. I've heard rumors about stuff where they're trying to make indexed buckets on a bucket storage like S3, so that's and you just kind of have indexes into an object store, because object stores are significantly easier to operate at scale than Elastic is. So if even if you use the most complex option like Ceph, Cephfs is super complicated to run, but Ceph blob store is actually quite easy. It's not as difficult. But then there's other. You can also the cloud providers are just really good at doing this. They've got giant object stores where you could store petabytes of logs, and it's dirt cheap.
That makes so much sense to me. Like, that would be ideal if we can do something like that. Index buckets. So how would that work? You put it in the object storage, and then you create another bucket that has the same information but then indexed, or that has the index to it.
No, you store you either store the indexes so you store the raw logs and in the buckets, and then you may have a separate set of buckets that contain indexing files. So basically, like say a key value store file. For example, this is actually how Thanos does everything. So Prometheus has this feature that basically every 2 hours it creates a bunch of files that contain the time series, and then it creates an index file. And all Thanos does is take and dump those blobs of metrics blocks and index blocks and puts those into the object store. And then in order to query it, it creates a small lightweight index over the indexes. So now it's got a meta index that it can just load into memory. And then as it needs it, it fetches down, it does range requests against the object store to get index pieces and chunk pieces, and it caches those in a cache, a local cache. So
that is so interesting. That feels like the future.
Yeah, it is really, really awesome for Prometheus storage. And
someone's watching this, please make that for logs and spam Ben and me, Twitter it to me. Like, we need this. This needs to exist in the world.
Yeah, no, like this kind of object stored logging would be super, super awesome. I just don't know who's working on it yet.
We need indexes on object storage for logs. Please, world, help us.
Any other questions? All right, I guess I'll see everybody at the next team call.